Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me. And I'm back. I am back with a brand new What If for Shield Hero. What if Naofumi was the hunting hero? And I could have said this in various ways. What if Naofumi had the legendary hunting tool? Or what if Naofumi was chosen by the hunting spirit? I could have said a lot of things. But I called it this for a reason. And I feel like this was the least spoiler-ish warning type of title. Let me be blunt about this. There's very little known about the hunting hero. I mean, at least in terms of the manga and in terms of the anime, not at all. So if you don't want spoilers, which I know a lot of you don't really care about spoilers, it seems, but I know there are a decent little bit of you that do care about spoilers. This will be spoilers. This is going to be based on whatever I know about the legendary hunting tool, and whatever I don't know, well, I'm gonna make it up, because what's the fun in a what if I can't make stuff up? So it's gonna be what if Naofumi was the hunting hero. Make sure to stay here, watch the whole video, get a bucket of popcorn, get some water, get some soda, get whatever you need. Preferably water, you know? Water's good for you. And yeah, that's about it. I know I just wasted 2 minutes of this video, but that's beyond the point. So let's just get right into the what if. Let's get it. Our protagonist, the main character of this story, Naofumi Iwatani. Naofumi, well, in his world, was more or less an apprentice hunter, but when he was younger, he learned how to hunt deer and other things like that with simple bow and arrow, or maybe even a rifle. It's just simple things. He just goes with his father and his mother on the weekends to hunt down anything they can get. In terms of, well, obviously, like I said, deers, sheep, it could be anything. They're allowed to hunt on the grounds that they have, so that's what they do. Naofumi's family has a rich culture of hunting, and well, their ancestors did tons of it. So that's what Naofumi was doing when he was a young child and when he was growing up. Hunting, fishing, everything you could think of, he was doing it. And well, one day he was just sitting along a stream, fishing, and he began to feel the ground under him rumbling. And well, in the water, a giant fish began to appear, and Naofumi begins to try and catch it. He begins to reel it in, struggling as he does so, and he tries to pull, but nothing will work. He can't quite reel in this giant fish, but he pulls one more time as hard as he possibly can, and it goes swinging into the air. But there's nothing on his rod. There's nothing at all but a glowing light. And when it lands on the ground, it dashes toward Naofumi, and when it makes contact with him, he's gone from the river. The world he knows is now, well, poofed, vanished. No, the world didn't vanish. He vanished. Where is he? He looks around to see that there's 3 other people. One maintaining a spear, another holding a sword, and another one holding a bow. He thinks that maybe he has a weapon too, and looks to see that he has a fishing rod. He still has a fishing rod. They look at him and they're confused. They all have these cool weapons, but he has a fishing rod. Now Fumi doesn't know what's happening, and frankly, he doesn't really care. He just wants to go home. He wants to go home to his family, obviously. He even asked them what they think is going on, and they don't know either. But they introduce themselves. Obviously, Naofumi introduces himself, and so does Motoyasu, so does Ren, and so does Itsuki. But that doesn't really change the fact that they're just here. And they look to see that, well, it seems that they were summoned for some reason. It seems like whatever happened, they were summoned to this world for a reason. But why? Why would they be summoned? And these disciples of the king begin to explain that the king will actually tell them why they were summoned. They actually all arrive, and the king sees them. He sees the spear, the sword, the bow, But who's this? Is he some fisherman that just came off the shore? This is odd. Why is he here? Naofumi looks at him confused and thought that he could give him the answers. Wait, you don't know why I'm here either? I mean, I wasn't summoned like them? The king actually brings up the fact that the shield hero is supposed to be here. The shield hero. So I was supposed to have a shield instead of a fishing rod? I mean, it's a fishing rod. Am I just a fisherman? And the king is confused as well, but he looks at the Naofumi's item, or his fishing rod, and he says that he definitely belongs here. And that's kind of odd that he, didn't come out to be the shield hero. But maybe this is for the best. Actually, the king begins to tell Naofumi that the shield hero wasn't a good guy, historically. So someone like him coming here is probably better. And the king says that he bets that in his world he was, he must have been some sort of hunter and must have been some family man, correct? And Naofumi nods, saying that that's correct. He actually hunted all his life, and that's all he really did. And he enjoyed it a lot, and he did it with his family. And the king nods and says that this is much better than having that devil of a shield. So they don't really question it. Actually, no one knows who the shield hero is anyways, so it doesn't really concern them. And obviously the king says that there isn't much time to talk currently. It's getting, pretty late, so they'll take their rest and then come back later. Eventually that happens. They go take their rest and they actually chat for a while, and they begin explaining how this world seems to be kind of like a video game. But Naofumi explains that he's never played video games in his life, but he seems to be getting the hang of it. He does everything that the other heroes say in terms of accessing the menu and seeing other things like that. Figuring out that he is the legendary hunting hero, something of that magnitude, and his item is actually, the legendary hunting tool. So he doesn't necessarily have a weapon, he has a tool. And that would explain why he has a fishing rod instead of some sharp, amazing weapon. But even Ren and Itsuki say that, technically a spear could be counted as a hunting tool, and so could a bow, and so could other forms of daggers. And Naofumi nods, saying that he agrees. He's hunted with bows before, and actually if he wants tips on archery, Naofumi can give it. And Itsuki says that he'd love to hear the tips, and he actually wouldn't mind just knowing the basics of archery, just so he can have a nice head start. Motoyasu and obviously Ren ask if he knows anything about their weapons or how to use a sword and a spear, but Naofumi says that they don't really use those in hunting. They use more like daggers and stuff like that. Spears could be seen maybe as javelins, but Naofumi's never been a javelin thrower, so can't really help him on that. But he does show Itsuki how to hold a bow properly and other things like that, and that does give Itsuki a good jump start, at least when learning his weapon more and more. This obviously ends the night and they go to sleep, and when they wake up the next morning they meet at the castle. The king is there waiting for them and begins explaining that they'll be getting a party that will more or less be what they have for most of the journey, unless they add more and more. And the party begins to pick, or at least the people begin to pick, and Naofumi gets nobody. At the end of the day, he has a fishing rod and nobody wants to help him, and even Mine doesn't want to help him. Mine doesn't see any reason to betray him, and Mine also doesn't see a reason to even try to help him. She has to think for herself, and the luck of, the draw leads to her to Motoyasu, someone that she can definitely manipulate to whatever she wants. And Naofumi looks around and says that he's hunted on his own before, so he'll be just fine. He'll just need to figure out some things, and maybe in the future he'll gain some new people. And obviously the king wishes him the best and actually gives him a lot more money than the other heroes. This is definitely needed by every means of the imagination. Naofumi is basically lacking in most, if not every, department currently. So that's what happens. And then obviously the waves are explained, a series of demonic invasions that will occur. And Now Fumi's gonna have to deal with this practically on his own, at least for the time being. He goes out and immediately searches for a blacksmith or an armament shop that he can use to at least make it so that he can, well, beef himself up. And he tries to find maybe another weapon, but that doesn't necessarily work. And he learns that he needs to use his weapon or it won't get XP, and there's just a lot of things he needs to deal with. And he actually finds out that his weapon has a special way of leveling up. He can level up every single, well, item he gets. It seems like every creation, as if, well, was a different thing, would level up on its own. So his fishing rod, for instance, would level up and continuously get better, and better. Does he know what to do with the fishing rod other than just fish? No, not at all. But, I mean, maybe he'll learn when he gets there. So he obviously then meets Erhard, who is the blacksmith of, well, his shop, and he gets some more or less basic armor for some good price, and obviously has that nice hero discount that Erhard nicely gives him. And he's actually looks around Erhard's shop in hope of finding anything that could help him at least defeat some monsters, but yeah, that's a no-go. And Erhard says that he's gonna have to try to find some people maybe to help him out or something. And well, he can't really think of anything, but maybe in the future something will arise. So he goes out and he actually goes toward where the heroes are, making sure he stays away from them because he's obviously won't get XP if they're too close to each other. And he sees that they're fighting these tiny balloon monsters, and he doesn't necessarily have a way of defeating them, but he walks over and sees that he's gonna try at least to fight them. He does just that, and I mean, after some struggle, he actually does defeat one, in which he gets a good boost of XP. The rest of the heroes seem to be getting about 2, maybe 3 XP. Naofumi got 8 to 9 XP. It seems that as a hunter or of that idea, he actually gets boosted XP. Doesn't change the fact that it took him forever to kill one of them, but I mean, at least it was somewhat helpful. And he picks up the more or less the cloth that was on it, and he puts it on his fishing rod. And when he does this, his fishing rod begins to slightly change, and he sees that the level of the fishing rod changed as well. He looks to see that no other weapons have been unlocked or other tools have been unlocked, which he thinks that is a complete bummer, but so be it. But it does seem that a new fishing rod was actually progressed into and given some special abilities. It seems now that it'll be actually easier to fish up anything, or at least fish up certain fish and stuff like that. So now Fumi thinks that maybe this is probably a good idea for him to fish. So now Fumi does just that. He begins fishing and fishing and fishing until it's practically late at night, and he heads back, well, to an apartment, or well, basically a hotel room that he has. He goes to sleep, wakes up the next morning, and frankly, he realizes that this is not the best way to train. I mean, fishing gave him some XP, and that's a plus, and his fishing rod is definitely getting level after level, which is awesome, giving him more quality fish that he could sell, eat for, well, HP gain and other stat boosts. But, well, it's nothing really he can use to benefit himself. He did notice, though, that when he fought the, well, small monsters, that he gained a pretty decently sized stat boost when fighting these monsters, but when he just has a fishing rod, it doesn't necessarily help. So he begins to get a theory. Maybe he can get another weapon that is involved with hunting. He believes this to be true anyways, but how could he do that? He'll need to find something or someone, or well, more specifically, a monster that has something to provide for him. Something strong, maybe something that he can use to fight, well, other monsters. And he actually does have an idea. He begins thinking that maybe he should go to a nearby village. Maybe a village can inform him of a certain creature he could fight, or maybe something of that magnitude. But he feels that it's not really that time to do that, at least right now. He'll maybe talk to someone he knows and see what he can do, but he does need to train. He needs to train XP, even if that means just fishing, if that means trying to kill these low-level monsters. He's going to try his best to do just that. So that's what he does. As boring as it is for him, and obviously it would be boring to not mix things up, he just fishes the whole time. I mean, yes, he enjoyed fishing in the real world, but dang, this is boring now. This is all he's been doing for hours on end, and yeah, he catches a lot of fish and makes a decent amount of money and good food from it, but this is ridiculous. How slow he's leveling and how little XP he's actually slowly but surely getting with his fishing rod. It seems that his fishing rod needs to actually catch bigger things now, but it does seem that his fishing rod is getting stronger and stronger, so he assumes that's good. Maybe in the future he can maybe gain access to a larger fish, maybe even have a giant fish join his party. He doesn't know. He's just being optimistic at this point. But with that all said and done, he heads back for the night, and when he heads back, someone actually approaches him. Someone that he doesn't really like the aura behind, but he begins to talk to Naofumi. You know, I could definitely help you with your little problem you're having. Not being able to, well, you could say have people by your side. Not being able to get help. It seems nobody wants to be around the hunting hero. The person who could only fish. Okay, I get it. I understand what you're saying. What do you want? He begins to explain that he runs a, well, you could say underground slave market that could easily get him someone or something to help him out. And Naofumi initially was against it, but he insists. He says he just wants to have him look at it, and if he doesn't like anything, he doesn't have to pick anything out, but he can see that he needs the help. Naofumi reluctantly agrees and checks it out, seeing these caged monsters one after one after one, and it's ridiculous. These monsters are just in complete captivity. They can't do anything. And actually, he immediately shows him a high-level wolfman, a monster that could be feared, and Naofumi looks at his rod, and actually, it begins to activate. The wolfman actually would get a giant boost if he joined Naofumi's party. It's odd. It seems that it's a monster-ish boost, but maybe it has something to do with him being the hunting hero of some sorts, dealing in maybe taming a little bit. He's not sure, but it could have aspects of taming alongside obviously hunting, because, well, obviously if you have dogs, wolves, and stuff like that to hunt for you, that is still hunting. But Naofumi isn't quite sure, but it's not like he has the money to buy the giant wolfman or the high-level wolfman. It's far out of budget. And Naofumi even says this, saying that, well, he knows that he doesn't have the money for that. And, well, the man says that that's his mistake, and of course he wouldn't want to buy something so expensive. And he begins to show him other, well, beings, and shows him actually a little girl by the name of Raftalia. And Naofumi, under his, well, loving instincts at that point, immediately says that he'll take her, that this is not the place for a sick little girl. And, well, he's splendid to hear this. The slave market owner begins to laugh and say that he could get him something for a reasonable price that is a little bit more beneficial than her, but he explains that it's just fine, that he doesn't care, that he'll make sure she's okay. And, well, the slave market owner says that he still has to put a slave crest mark on her, and that, trust him, it will still bring, well, a nice good bonus to what he was doing. So Naofumi pays up and then heads off and brings Raphtalia, well, to a safe place and begins explaining to her everything that's going on. That he's a hero, well, one of the 4 cardinal heroes, and she asks if he's, well, the shield hero, and he shakes his head. I'm sorry, I'm no shield hero. I've heard some awful things about him. I've been questioning that. Are they true? Raphtalia says that she's never heard such awful things about the shield hero, only good things. Her parents used to tell her the amazing stories of how, well, he saved them. And Naofumi actually is shocked by this. Why would the kingdom be so against the shield hero when, according to this girl who has nothing to lie about, says that, well, that they're lying? That they're basically saying that the shield hero is horrible, but he's not. Naofumi puts that in his pocket for a little bit. He doesn't want to let that get out, at least for now. He has to handle his own business, so that's what he's going to do. He explains to Raphtalia that he needs her to help him, well, slay monsters. And she's afraid of this, but Naofumi says that he'll be there the whole time. And it's really just, well, until he can do it himself. And Raphtalia nods, and she's scared of the aspect of killing monsters, but Naofumi eventually eases her into, well, at least killing the balloon, well, orange killer balloons things. And she's able to do that with the dagger that she ends up getting from Erhard, and they get her some minor clothing, which is like minor armor, and she's able to actually slay these things pretty easily. And Naofumi begins to get a decent amount of XP, and so does Raphtalia, getting a boost not only from her slave crest, but also from the fact that she is part monster. She is a demi-human, and she is a part animal, so in all technicality, she is quote-unquote part monster, fitting the role of getting the XP boost, which Naofumi didn't believe that there would be technicalities like this, but he's not against it if it helps him. So he has a pretty good training session. The only bumps and bruises that actually they get is the fact that Raphtalia is terrified of blood. The balloons weren't giving off blood, but when it came to this rabbit, she was terrified. And when she stabbed into it, she began to have, like, more or less a panic attack. And Naofumi felt so bad and more or less just tried to calm her down and comfort her. And after comforting her, she began to realize that Naofumi is the only person that ever really helped her, at least to this point, and it's been a long time. And she says that once he gets, well, strong enough to fight on his own, will he leave her? And Naofumi says that she wants to stay around, that she can, and he'll eventually get the slave crest off of her if that's what she wants as well. And Raphtalia says that she doesn't care about that. She actually just cares about being with him, making sure that she's safe, and that he's the closest thing to family she's ever had, at least any time soon after losing her parents. And Naofumi says that he'll be here for as long as he has to be, or as long as she wants him to be. And Naofumi then eventually is actually able to cure Raphtalia of her mild cold, which wasn't very hard. Actually, Raphtalia was probably gonna eventually break free of it due to the environment that Naofumi was putting her in, but he actually was able to fish up some special fish that would eventually subside the cold, which actually worked out perfectly. This then leads to them obviously getting some upgrades on his weaponry. Well, less him and more her, getting her stronger armor and a better blade. And Naofumi pays Erhard pretty handsomely for this because, well, Naofumi needed some more information, and he was actually able to get some. He asked where he can, well, go at least nearby that can make him a decent amount of money, especially with the fact that, well, fishing, yeah, it's good, but it's having its stints, and the fact that the fish are more or way better for just, healing properties, and certain, like sickness curing fishes are just better to have compared to, selling the fish. he would like to find somewhere that, well, can make him some money. And Erhard tells him that the only place he can think of actually for him and his level is Loot. And the village of Loot shouldn't be too far from here. So that's where Naofumi goes. He goes to the village of Loot. He heads over and he begins talking to the locals, more or less just asking them what certain prices they take for this or that, and then ask them where could he make some money. And they explain that there is a place and there's a cave nearby that is very good for making money, but it's kind of festered with high level monsters now, so nobody even goes in there. But Naofumi sees this as a chance to at least gain some money, at least at a quicker pace, and maybe even get Raphtalia some levels and himself. So they head over, entering the cave, and it's pretty simple. They start mining and collecting valuable ore. That's until they're attacked by a high level dog monster that Naofumi isn't actually able to keep up with. It bites into Naofumi's arm and he's gravely injured really badly, and he screams for Raphtalia to strike it. But Raphtalia is frozen in fear, and Naofumi looks at her and says that if she doesn't make a move now, that her want to have him still here won't be anymore. And she still can't move, and Naofumi just yells for her just to run away then, because he doesn't want her to die. And he tries to use, anything he can. His current, hunting tool, which is literally just a fishing rod, has a mild stun ability, but even that doesn't really affect much. He stuns the, giant dog, or the giant high-level dog monster for a second, but that still doesn't really help. That's until Raphtalia charges in and stabs the monster. She gets flung away, but Naofumi realizes that she must have broken through her fear. Naofumi immediately tries to stun the monster again, and does slightly, but gets knocked away as Raphtalia goes in once again, slicing the dog's neck and killing the monster. He looks to see that they got an insane amount of XP from this, and Raphtalia got, even more XP than him. And he walks over to the monster, picking up some of its claws and other stuff and putting it into, his hunting tool. And once he does, something actually comes up. It basically says that he's gained a new, tool. But before he figures that out, he takes Raphtalia away. He wants to make sure that she's safe first, and then he'll deal with his new hunting tool. He takes her away, they get healed up, and they are actually just resting in their hotel room, and he begins to look at his new tool. He looks to see that it's a cleaver. It seems that the cleaver is made from the talons of the dog and also the teeth, and it's extremely sharp. And he looks to see that the pathing in terms of upgrading it is insane. The more it gets upgraded, the sharper it gets, and also the more mobility and actually effects it gives when skinning certain animals. So he's super happy about this. I mean, multiple good things have come from this. Raphtalia's fear of the dog is no more, and then on top of this, Naofumi has a weapon that he can actually use to kill things. Raphtalia again asks if this means that, she's not of use anymore, and Naofumi just kind of smiles and laughs and says that's not true. Without her, that he would definitely be dead right now. So if she wants to stick around, she can, and like he said before, the slave crest can come off. And she shakes her head, saying that if it helps in terms of her leveling, that she won't ask to take it off, that she doesn't care. And Naofumi just sighs and says that it's her choice, of course, and if she ever changes her mind, she can change it in the future. And that was about it. After that, they finally have some time to do some true leveling. A month of leveling, actually, and Naofumi and Raphtalia see insane gains. But also on top of this, Raphtalia rapidly matures into a young adult woman because of the way demi-humans work in terms of leveling. On top of this, Naofumi has upgraded his machete. It's actually got to the point where he can kill things relatively quickly, and when he skins things, it is an amazing profit, and he gets an amazing amount of, well, fur, pelts, and we're talking food as well. So the food issue in terms of fishing is not a problem, but he actually grown to actually like fishing a little bit more, especially the fact that he doesn't necessarily have to fish. It makes fishing more like a hobby in a way, you could say. And he finds that the fishing is having extreme benefits. Actually, he's getting treasure from fishing. As his fishing rod grows in level, he can actually, well, get better and better items from fishing, which is kind of odd that he's not just getting fish anymore. But that's really not the point here. But he then continues on, obviously, after the entire month with his preparations for the wave. That was the whole point of why he has Raphtalia and why he's been trying to get a weapon that can, well, more or less level up and help him in a fight. To determine the time remaining for the next wave, Naofumi and Raphtalia head to the capital's cathedral and its hourglass, or its dragon hourglass, in which measures the time of the wave. And when they arrive, they're actually met by the 3 other heroes, who actually greet Naofumi with pretty good amount of respect. Nobody actually hates him right now, or would hate him by any means, but they are questioning who this Raphtalia character is, and sees that she has a slave crest on. And Motoyasu has some sort of idea what it is, and questions Naofumi on why he would do that. And he explains that he took her from a slave market that was practically letting her die, and on top of this, she chose to have the slave mark still on. He offered multiple times to take it off. And Raphtalia even confirms this. She says that, well, it helps Naofumi level up, and also it helps her level up, and she is here by choice anyways, so it doesn't matter. And Motoyasu actually buys this, in which he should, because it's the truth, but a certain someone may have some other opinion on this. And Naofumi also does explain that he actually can't hurt humans. He found this out from the description of his weapon. He's literally just the hunting hero, but monsters and other creatures like that he can definitely hurt, but he can't do anything else. And they're shocked by this. They don't even know what to say. But I mean, at the time, it's not like they need him to hurt people. They even explain that it's not like they're fighting amongst each other or fighting other, well, so-called people in the world. Just, it's good that Naofumi has some partners that can at least help fight for him, because he's literally defenseless against humans. And he nods and says that's a good reason why Naofumi wants. I mean, obviously Raphtalia is still here, but obviously he gave her the choice to leave. And their conversation eventually ends. And this then leads to, well, the wave. So Naofumi and Raphtalia head over to the, well, village of Loot to make sure that they can evacuate the citizens and actually protect them. And Naofumi sees this as a good way of, well, trying to, well, get to know his weapon more and also gaining XP for his weapon. Maybe his level might not go up much, but the weapon XP is all based on killing monsters and other things like that. So his machete should be able to upgrade tremendously. On top of this, he never really knows what type of monsters he could add to his weapon, so maybe he can get even cooler things. The wave then eventually begins, and skeletons, hornets, and killer monsters run rampant over the village of Loot, and Naofumi and Raphtalia dash in, killing one after the other, trying to protect the villagers, until Naofumi tells her that he'll handle, well, the monsters for now, and she should handle the evacuation so that they can make sure they can all live. And she nods and dashes away, taking them all away as quick as possible. Naofumi kills a skeleton and absorbs it into his, well, hunting tool, more or less weapon, and then he kills this giant hornet, and he takes his stinger and basically absorbs it as well. And any other monsters he can, he begins absorbing it. And after defeating most of the, well, wave that was there, everything seems to have calmed down. Him, Raphtalia, and a bunch of the knights were able to actually handle it, and the knights respect Naofumi a good bit, especially after hearing that he's really restricted in terms of his, well, hunting tools. It seems that Naofumi has to get very creative in terms of what tools he can use in fighting monsters like this. And he, well, more or less thanks them for their respect and basically just asks them to make sure everyone's okay, in which they obviously agree, and everybody runs around making sure nobody's hurt. And anybody who is hurt, they get healed up and everything is at ease, actually keeping the damage to, well, the village of Loot to a minimum, which is fantastic, obviously. Now that the wave is completely over, Naofumi decides that he's going to look at everything he's gained from the wave, actually learning that he's gained some actually new weapons. The main one that he's actually gained though is an odd blow dart like weapon or tool, and it's basically made from the hornets that were around, and it seems like this weird blow dart will put animals, beasts, or other things like that to sleep depending on the torpor that it actually gives off, and also depending on the level that it is. And it seems that it will progressively get better and better the more, well, animals or beasts that Naofumi knocks out. And it seems that knocking them out does give him a slight amount of, well, XP. So that's one thing he actually gained, which is actually very beneficial. But he also gained another thing from the skeletons. It seems that he gained his own bow. It's an odd bow that, well, is built from the bones and also other body parts of that skeleton. But it looks like it's kind of one of those bows that are very basic. The string doesn't pull back very far, and it seems that you would need to upgrade it substantially to actually, well, make it good. After being thanked by the people of Loot, they basically just head off to the castle, in which when they arrive, they are actually treated to a state dinner, and Naofumi and Raphtalia just relax and eat some food. But Mine then talks to Motoyasu, and Motoyasu confronts Naofumi, and he says that Mine told him that Raphtalia is, well, more or less part of his party by force and not by choice. And Naofumi says that that's absolutely ridiculous, that she's literally admitted to him that she's there by her own choice. And Mine steps up saying that if she has the slave crest, then she can't go out on her own, and that if he was a real hero, they'd get rid of it. So honestly, Naofumi just shakes his head and looks at Raphtalia. She nods, and they honestly just get the slave crest removed. And right when it's removed, Raphtalia says that she can just get it back later. It won't be a big deal. And that Naofumi actually does say that he wants to, well, free a couple more slaves from that place anyways. And Mine is at a loss for words, and she says that that's ridiculous. She must be brainwashed or something, and Naofumi must have done something or is threatening her. And Naofumi says that that's also ridiculous. Actually, Itsuki and Ren come up behind her. You know he can't hurt anybody, correct? Like humans? It's not actually possible for him to do that. Yeah, I don't understand where you're getting at, Mine. Naofumi just nods toward them and says that that is true. He literally cannot fight humans. It's something that's not, well, it's not something he can do. And if he was threatening Raphtalia, he would have to be able to fight her, which he doesn't believe that he can because she's part human. And well, she isn't necessarily a monster. She's only part quote unquote monster or part animal. So there's no guarantee that he can actually fight her or not. And well, Mine is, well, pissed about this, saying that this is ridiculous, and it seems that she's mad for some odd reason. We don't know why, but Naofumi actually has an idea. He doesn't say this out loud, but he suspects that she's trying to, well, basically manipulate Motoyasu the best to her ability, and not being able to produce the downfall of Naofumi is actually hurting just that. It seems that Motoyasu is, well, more free-willed in this scenario, and she is not a big fan of that. She wants the control of one of the heroes all for herself. But with that all said and done, Naofumi finds this ridiculous and just heads out, eventually going back to the slave market and just getting the seal put back on. And well, Naofumi says that this is about time to actually get a new person to add it to their team. And he says that that he might as well just take another person, well, from the slave market to free them, and well, they can have the choice if they want the slave mark or not, or the slave crest or not. And obviously the slave market owner will more or less coerce him into getting a gacha monster egg, in which he ends up getting, which, as all of us know, will end up being Philo. And it's a Philolio. And Naofumi, when obviously the Philolio is hatched, he names her Philo. And she immediately imprints on Naofumi. And what's kind of odd though, is that she's growing at a rapid rate. It seems that he gets some taming like bonus, and he realizes something. That's exactly what the, well, blow dart he has is for. He can knock animals or other things out and actually tame them. He got this idea from the fact that Philo did imprint on him, and it seems like Philo gets boosts when quote unquote taming. So he technically did hatch Philo, so he technically did tame her in a way, which is an odd way to look at it, but it is kind of true. So after reaching adulthood, I mean, in just a matter of days and feeding her tons of food, he has a full-grown Philolio, and he visits the village of Lutz once again. But this time, Motoyasu actually doesn't show up. Motoyasu doesn't believe he has to show this royal decree or make this royal decree to rule over the village of Lutz, because he finds it that there's no reason to do so. In this, Motoyasu has a little bit more control over his, well, mind. But even with that said, nothing really changes from here on out. This town is obviously still in more or less hurting a little bit, and they need to rebuild just a wee bit before they obviously are fully and up and running once again. But Naofumi knows that he needs to, well, go on with everything that's occurring, and Philo, well, is going to be just the right person for that. And right when he begins to think about this, Philo grows again. She's huge. She's not the size of a normal Philolio. She is actually massive. She's a giant bird that it seems that she'll be able to carry a giant cart, which is perfect for them. In which he's going to be able to, well, go throughout other villages, trading and making money. I mean, obviously for his team. This then leads obviously Naofumi to asking Erhard about maybe having some basket or a giant wheelbarrow type of thing, and he says that he can probably whip something up, but I mean, he kind of needs to get Philo out of his blacksmith before he does that. And he goes to do just that, but Philo begins to shrink and becomes a small little girl with angel-like wings, and he immediately throws his cloak over her because she doesn't have clothes on. And he says that, I guess that solves the problem? And Erhard is completely shocked by this, but doesn't question it. But he does bring up that they might need some magical, well, clothing for Philo, so that, well, more or less she can have clothing that will fit her no matter what, even when she grows. And Naofumi sees this as a great idea. So they head off after getting this, well, obviously a wheelbarrow or like a wagon type of thing, and he actually escorts a wealthy trader to where he's going, eventually arriving at the place that the trader needs to be. And well, Naofumi learns some new skills, getting introduced to new contacts and other things like that, and actually getting a discount from the trader. But obviously at the end of the day, the goal of Naofumi is to basically go to this magic owner's shop and search for this magic gemstone, in which they end up doing. But unfortunately, the magic gemstone and everything they need is obviously somewhere else, so that's where he heads off. He goes to find this odd alchemist tomb, and he actually asks the magic shop lady if that's where the gem is supposed to be, and she says no, actually, that it's actually holds something known as the cursed seed, and the seed isn't actually there, which is kind of worrisome. But luckily there's nothing well going on, at least around here where she lives. But their journey continues and they finally locate the gem vein, where obviously they need to get this gemstone to, well, make Philo this magical thread. But what stands in front of them is called a giant monster that looks like a manticore, and the manticore-like monster begins to fight them. Naofumi, taking out his cleaver, immediately begins to fight with the manticore monster, but begins to think, maybe it's best if he doesn't kill it. So he backs up and asks if Raphtalia and Philo can get into evasive maneuvers and just stall him. Make noise here, make noise there, and confuse the manticore as much as possible, and they ask why. And Naofumi says that he has an idea. He shoots blow darts at the manticore-like monster, eventually knocking the monster out. The monster's out cold, and Naofumi comes over and begins to feed the monster some food. And it seems like there's a taming process upon the monster, which is kind of odd, but it takes a long time. His skill in terms of this is ridiculously low, and frankly, it seems like, well, hunting as the hunting hero, it's very detrimental in terms of trying to tame things unless he has a really high level blow dart gun, or for instance, if he was doing it in the water, a really high level fishing rod. So it does take a long time, but eventually the manticore-like monster is tamed, and Philo and Raphtalia are surprised, and he sits there and goes to pet it, and it's as if it was like a puppy of some sorts, and acts very calm around Naofumi and everybody else that he deems not a threat. And Naofumi is stunned by this, but is appreciative. You have to realize Naofumi needs all the help he can get. At the end of the day, he's not super strong. He's probably not even as strong as Raphtalia at this point. Raphtalia probably packs more of a punch than him. Everything he has is based on developing a cleaver that will slowly but surely get stronger and stronger, which is probably a higher low tier weapon currently at this moment. The highest weapon he has is probably his fishing rod, which isn't even a weapon. So Naofumi does need some backup, and this is a perfect thing for backup. This manticore monster that seems to have a poison-like scent and also can strike things with like its odd tail will be definitely useful for future waves and also leveling up. He actually looks as well to see that he is part of the same category as Raphtalia and Philo. But the only thing is that, well, this beast is kind of not the smartest. In fact, obviously Raphtalia and Philo have their own minds to work with, and frankly, they're practically human-like, so it might be a little different, at least learning and teaching this monster. Or, I mean, obviously Naofumi has to name it, so he thinks for a while. And Philo says that a great name would be Jacob, so he's like, why not? And just names the new Jacob. Now with all that settled, they obtain the gemstone and obviously head back to the magic shop, which they helps Philo get the magical thread. Eventually leading them obviously to the dressmaker, in which they make Philo her famous dress that transforms with her body perfectly. After some time, finally Naofumi is tasked by the trader that he met a little while ago, gives him a job to deliver herbicide to a village. And Naofumi, when he arrives, actually realizes that the village is overrun by a monstrous plant. Luckily, when he's entering, he's easily able to chop it down with his cleaver, and actually with relative ease he's able to do so. But he then learns from the locals that, well, from the tomb is what spear hero Motoyasu used to end a local famine. But when the plant sprouted, it came alive, and it began attacking the villagers, and everything began to go wrong, and Motoyasu was gone. He's no longer there, and, well, they turn to Naofumi in hopes that maybe he can defeat the monster plant, and he says he'll try. I mean, ideally this would be a job for him, so he's gonna give it a shot. As they are talking about this, they begin hearing weird noises. It seems like something or someone is already fighting the monsters. Naofumi looks at Philo, looks at Raphtalia, and then realizes Jacob isn't there. They run out to see Jacob fighting every single monster, and the snake on his tail is actually doing a good bit of damage. It seems like the snake and the venom within it is actually puncturing through these monstrous plants and just corrupting and killing them. It seems like the snake's venom is actually putting away the plant's, well, obviously insane evolution on a hold. It seems that, well, Jacob could be the way to actually stop this thing. So Naofumi brings over, well, the herbicide to the snake, and he begins to more or less embed the venom with the herbicide. And, well, Jacob and Naofumi, Philo, and Raphtalia begin to attack the monster as the snake injects this herbicide that was obviously going to be amplified by the venom to actually completely get rid of this monstrous plant. And actually this would make it so that the evolution of this monstrous plant would completely halt. And Naofumi is pretty glad by this because he's able to chop down some of this, well, the monstrous side of the plant and put it within his, well, his weapon, gaining some new, well, obviously some levels with obviously his cleaver, but also a new version of a weapon. It seems he has another version of his cleaver, and it's oddly looks like just like a plant, but it seems to be venomous. So when he heads back obviously to the village that he just helped save, he explains what occurred, and they all celebrate, praising Jacob as their Lord and Savior in a weird way, kind of like the whole Savior of the Heavenly Fowl thing. And now Naofumi has two saviors on his team, which he actually finds kind of funny. But with all that said and done, and the villagers will now able to, well, live normally, he takes everything he has and, well, heads off. After going back and exchanging with his trader, obviously, he gets something else to actually deliver merchandise to the Hot Springs village. So he heads over there after getting some stuff from the trader, and they end up staying the night and relaxing in the Hot Springs. And Raphtalia is with Jacob, and Philo is with Naofumi, in which Raphtalia is pretty mad about and is jealous. But I mean, obviously, same old, and Naofumi ends up just going to bed soon after, in which Raphtalia and Philo venture off to hopefully find something for Naofumi, and they end up just, well, finding a giant boar, in which Jacob, Philo, and Raphtalia take it down with ease and believe that maybe they should just bring it back to Naofumi. I mean, obviously Naofumi can skin it and things like that. It actually might be beneficial for him to absorb the tusks of this boar, and it might be able to make some type of other weapon. So in the morning, Naofumi actually sees this boar practically on the table, and he actually thanks them for this and analyzes it, cutting them up, making food and stuff like that, and actually selling this food to the village, but keeping the tusks and actually learning more about them. And he puts them in his weapon or his hunting tool, and actually another weapon does occur, and it actually is very similar to a spear-like, well, weapon, but it's more, you could say, a javelin-ish weapon. But I mean, this would be very circumstantial, and he would have to jab from a certain distance, but it could be beneficial to put poison on top of it. And it might be a good way of, well, also knocking things out, or obviously poisoning things to give passive, obviously, debuffs and passive, well, damage. Now done with, well, obviously the hot spring and bringing the items that needed to be delivered, Naofumi and his party head to a nearby village that he learned of a mysterious disease. A disease that was spreading through the entire village, and Naofumi's party decides to investigate it, ending up finding out that this disease is caused from the sword hero Ren, who killed a dragon nearby but left the body to rot. And Naofumi realizes quickly that these people, they don't realize that this is no video game. Naofumi doesn't know much about video games, but from what they've told him, he knows that there's obviously automated systems within video games that would get rid of something like this. But do they not realize that this isn't a video game? This is practically real life. No, this is real life. And Naofumi obviously takes it upon himself and his party, including obviously Jacob, to go up and, well, clean up this mess, which Jacob isn't really gonna be able to help very much, but Naofumi and the rest of his party will. So that's what they do. They head up to the top of the mountain and find the dragon rotting away. Luckily, Naofumi has his skills and he's going to be able to easily clean this up. The fact that he has this cleaver that will clean it up practically almost instantly is honestly very, very good. He walks up and goes to stab into it though, and the dragon, well, oddly enough, begins to stand. He looks in complete shock at the dragon is staring at Naofumi. Naofumi bails backwards and Philo comes in out of nowhere kicking it, and so does Jacob. Jacob immediately snaps onto it with his tail, which poisons it immediately, but it being a zombie-like dragon, there is nothing that's going to poison it per se. Raftalia then dives in as well, cutting part of its wing, but even that doesn't really do much, and Naofumi needs to find an opening. He should be able to output enough damage or maybe enough strength to put it down, but everything that would put him out for good isn't going to be useful. He's not going to be able to blow dart this thing. His bow is not strong enough to really do anything. And well, there's only one other thing he can think of, and that's the weapon he just recently got, but that might not even work because of how low of a level it is. But he decides to try something. He more or less ties ropes to the end of it, and as they're dodging, he hops on Jacob and they dash away, and he throws a javelin at either side and just keeps throwing them at the dragon, eventually pinning the dragon down temporarily. Philo kick in the javelins, which are more like, well, kind of stakes in a way now, and she kicks them in so that they basically stick there and they can't move. Now the dragon is somewhat subdued, well, at least stuck, but the dragon is struggling and trying to get out. Naofumi then pulls out his cleaver and, well, begins to extend it. His upgraded cleaver is actually, well, able to grow in size now and do significant amounts of damage. This cleaver has been with him, well, obviously since he got Raftalia, and he's been training with it a lot, so it's actually getting up there in level, but obviously it's not exactly on the level of his fishing because he's been fishing ever since the very beginning. But that's obviously not the point. But he does do extra damage to these type of monsters, especially since it's a zombie monster, and he goes and slices at the head of the dragon. And when he slices down on it, he luckily is able to kill it once again, which is a whole nother scenario because technically it's a zombie, so thank God he was able to defeat it like this. But with that all said and done, he takes his cleaver, cuts it up, and more or less disposes of it really easily, and he actually gets some dragon scales and puts it within his hunting tool, and some other dragon fangs, teeth, and honestly even dragon's breath. All of these things actually end up making something for Naofumi. And this weapon, this upgraded hunting tool, will become a staple in his kit. And that is a one-handed hatchet, more like a one-handed axe, but obviously the size varies depending on the situations, and it's made solely out of the dragon's talons and teeth, and also the scales that act as a makeshift handle. He looks at the hatchet for a quick second before he rushes his team down the mountain, just in case of another attack, but obviously he's able to clean up everything they had to clean up. But he does observe this hatchet once again, seeing that it seems this hatchet is slightly different. It seems that the hatchet, has special properties to it, as if it took the enhancements of the zombie dragon. It has this flame tint to it, and it seems that when he kills regular animals with it, it actually automatically cooks the meat and also some other things. So he realizes that if he really wants to proceed in what he's doing and actually have success in these waves, he should be focusing on, at max, 3 things. This hatchet seems like it's going to be very, very crucial to him in the future. The cleaver has been very, very durable and effective in most instances, and then obviously, ironically enough, is going to be his fishing rod. His fishing rod has made him a good amount of money, and it continues to level up the most. But obviously, if we're talking about a fighting aspect of everything that's going on, the fishing rod isn't insanely useful, but it does have its insane perks when he's in the water. But with that said, he obviously wants to take into account using his javelin a little bit more, or his sort of spear in a way, because he feels like that would definitely be useful. But after actually thinking about this for a while, it's hard for him to choose. He thinks that maybe breaking it down into 3 weapons would make sense, but then he even goes back on the thought that maybe this wouldn't be the best idea. Everything has its use, but he really needs to figure out when to use it and when is it effective to level it up. But Naofumi doesn't even know the answer to that. And obviously the blow dart and other things like that, and obviously his bow that he has, is going to be on the back burner, because he hasn't ran into any real situations besides that one that he used the blow dart, and there's very few that would probably occur that would need it. But he still keeps it in mind and hopes that he can level it up alongside these other weapons. But for now, obviously he wants to pay more attention to his higher level weapons, and this seems to be a specialty weapon or tool he got just recently, or literally just right now. But with all that said and done, the village thanks him gratefully, and they are super, super happy that this disease will eventually blow over. Naofumi even leaves them obviously some medicines just in case, and then he, has to leave. They head off, and eventually they actually run into somebody. A blue-haired girl by the name of Melty, who is with tons of Philolials, and Melty quickly befriends Philo. Naofumi is pretty trusting at this point, and obviously introduces himself to Melty, and she asks if, she can accompany him to, the capital. And obviously Naofumi says that's completely fine, but they'll have to stop in and obviously sleep, at least for the night. And she says that's completely fine. A day or 2 then pass, and finally they arrive, and Naofumi is oddly surprised at who this girl actually is, and she's actually, the princess in line for the throne. And Naofumi is shocked about this and even says that that's pretty impressive, but who's the other person in line for the throne? She's making it seem like there's another sister maybe? And Melty says that her sister Malty is, and he doesn't know who that is, but she explains that he actually did meet her. You mean mine? Yes, I do mean her. Oh. I see why you're the princess that's, next up for the throne. And Melty says that yes, that her sister has, a toxic personality, and that's why she's obviously the next up due to that, obviously. And, Naofumi agrees, saying that mine has definitely started some things that were very unwarranted, and it seems like she wants to get control over the spear hero, which he's pretty concerned about, and actually asks Melty to keep an eye out just in case, and that he actually has a bad feeling. Melty is obviously an amazing person and seems to be a perfect princess in line for the throne, but obviously Naofumi has his questions about, Malty or mine. He questions, what is she exactly, and why is she acting the way she is? Naofumi explains that when an animal is backed into a corner is when it's its most dangerous, and for some reason she acts like she's backed into that corner all the time, and someone like that is someone very dangerous. Naofumi explains that he doesn't mean to be rude comparing, well, her sister to an animal, but that's just how he thinks about it. That she seems to be on edge. She seems to be ready to manipulate and change things for her liking no matter what. And obviously Melty sees this and agrees and says that this is definitely troublesome and she'll look into it the best she possibly can. And Naofumi tells her that, that if she ever wants to join his party, that she's more than welcome to, but she should be careful. And well, nobody is safe when people are backed into a corner. Naofumi, now with that last thing said, actually heads off to, well, gain some class upgrades. But before that even happens, they're actually approached by a small party wishing to join him after he saved Loot Village, which was their hometown. And he says that he doesn't mind if they join, but obviously it matters to him that they're for one safe, but also protecting their hometown in general. So he actually just gives them some money, saying that, well, he wants them to, well, more or less get the clothing they possibly can, upgrades and stuff like that, and, well, protect their village. Naofumi says that, well, they can technically be part of his party, but he's not going to be taking them around everywhere. He actually likes having a smaller group, and, well, he feels that the hunt is a little harder when there's more people around. And they agree, they understand what he means, and that his type of, well, hero work in terms of being the, well, hunting hero is a little different compared to Ren, Itsuki, and even Motoyasu. That their styles clash very much. The hunting hero is all based on, well, tranquilizing and defeating as quick as possible based on what was given to him. Motoyasu obviously has a spear, something that is deadly off rip. Naofumi started with a fishing rod, and same thing with Ren and Itsuki, things that are deadly to the touch, things that when you hit something, it will die depending on how much force you put into it. And well, Naofumi never had that. The best he could do was catch fish when he first started, so he believes that keeping that pack small is honestly for the best. And that obviously ends up leading to them heading off to, well, get their class upgrades, or at least hopefully get their class upgrades. And when they arrive, the royal decree greets them, but they're not sure what they should do. This hunting hero, per se, isn't necessarily, well, a hero of their world. It wasn't supposed to be him, it was supposed to be the shield hero. But they're kind of glad that it wasn't the shield hero at the same time, because, well, they didn't want to deal with the shield hero, per se. The shield hero was seen as a curse, as a bad person, so why would they want the shield hero here in the first place? But should they really allow someone that is technically like an outsider, well, gain this class upgrade? And the royal decree decides to forbid it, basically saying that the three other heroes are the only ones they dignify, which kind of rubs Naofumi the wrong way. Naofumi is doing everything that they are doing as well, protecting people and everything like that. So what is this malice that is coming to him? What did he do to deserve that? And he doesn't really understand it, but he just goes along with it. He doesn't care. He's not going to hold this grudge. And he tells Raphtalia, Philo, and obviously Jacob, which Jacob is a totally different topic because he can not talk at all, but that's beyond the point. But obviously tells them that they'll find another way to get class upgrades, in which obviously they learn about, well, there's another place to get class upgrades. Actually in Shield Frieden for their hourglass. But there's gonna be some things that will strike before then. Obviously the wave before, and they want to get there before the wave strikes, but that might not even happen. So while scouting towns, Naofumi happens to come across a starving refugees, just a bunch of them, and they fled a revolution that was started by Itsuki, the bow hero. And obviously he's confused by this. What is going on with these heroes being so lackluster? Why are they doing things for their own personal gain and not thinking about others? Or maybe they are thinking about others, but not worrying about the repercussions that could happen. it's like politics. One thing that occurs could affect another group of people no matter what. Same thing with, well, a hero can defeat a villain, but if you destroy building after building and school after school, this will hurt the place even as much as the villain attack. And, well, Naofumi already understands this, but it seems that Itsuki, Ren, and Motoyasu don't. And obviously he fishes a ton, an absolute ton, to feed these people, and actually stocks them up on fish for a while, and obviously helps them out in terms of planting and stuff like that, and anything he's learned that they can, well, regrow and actually stop, well, lacking food. And they are super grateful, giving him the reward for doing this for them. And before the next wave actually occurred, he actually heads back and he encounters Ren and Itsuki, and they ask him about, well, everything that's going on. And he breaks it down for them actually really quickly, and he begins to explain via a story. He explains something very serious, that when he was younger, they hunted multiple bears from caves and all around. These bears, if not killed properly, would actually release a poisonous gas. These bears would actually hurt the environment a lot. And the only reason why this would occur is because these bears would build up this food in their stomach, and this gas that would come from them would actually kill the plants around, if not dissected properly. And Ren asks why is he telling a story like this, and that it doesn't even really matter. And Naofumi says that he's getting to that. And Naofumi explains that one day Naofumi decided to cut corners and decided to, well, basically dissect this bear the fast way. And it actually made it so that practically in a 500-yard radius, these plants were dying. And Naofumi had to do everything in his power to save it and fix it. And his stupid mistake at trying to cut a corner, well, led to that. And he looks at Ren and asks about the dragon. A dragon you kill, Ren, doesn't just disappear. You have to butcher it, cut it down, and throw it away. And you left it there, and the village was being, well, contaminated, was being full of sickness. And Ren is in shock. Now he understands why this story was being told and realizes what he did, especially coming from Naofumi, someone who is an actual hunter, someone that actually hunts, or at least was hunting back in his other world, and now kind of does that, well, same thing. And Ren realizes it and realizes that this isn't a video game, and he's right. Itsuki then realizes what, well, Naofumi's getting at, and he must had something to do with obviously that revolution. And Naofumi nods. Yeah, the revolution, I mean, you more or less just took out one government and put in another, which is the last thing you want to do. And he explains that, well, it put them right back into famine and right back into lacking everything, lacking food, lacking anything. And Itsuki is shocked by this and apologizes to him, but Naofumi says that he just wants it to be right with the people that they helped initially, because obviously they have the right hearts and they have the right idea, but everything has a consequence, even if it has a good heart. And Ren and Itsuki agree, and they say that they'll figure it out and they'll make sure everything gets done properly next time. And Naofumi thanks them and says that if they ever need help, they can ask, and it's really not a problem. They are all heroes and they're all working together at the end of the day. And Ren and Itsuki realize that that is true. That, I mean, they know that they train on their own because that's the only way to get levels, but they are a team. So working together does matter. And, well, working together to get rid of these waves so that they can eventually, well, do maybe even an entire wave on their own should be a big goal for them to set. With that all said though, and all said and done, the wave is now 24 hours away. And obviously Naofumi wants to, well, get better gear, and everything set for that specifically, in which he does. He gets everything set, anything that he needs to cure, anything that he needs for, well, magic potions for healing and stuff like that, all set and ready to go. And he equips Raphtalia and Philo with brand new, well, items. Raphtalia actually gets a sword, a brand new sword that is based on, well, the dragon scales that he actually had. He had Erhard actually make things out of his extra dragon scales, talons, and teeth. He made a sword that was very similar to his hatchet, and then also Philo some these, well, weird talon gauntlets that made her talons way or her feet way sharper, just like a dragon's in a way. These dragon-like talons that could grip on and rip people to shreds. And Naofumi says that it should give a massive boost for this next coming wave. And he looks at Jacob and says that he actually doesn't have anything and that he didn't have enough time. And he pets Jacob on the head and apologizes. And as he does this though, Jacob begins to change. He begins to change into a boy? No, a man? He looks like he's Naofumi's age, and he's standing there and one of his arms is a snake and the other is, well, normal. He looks around and, well, Naofumi throws his cape over him saying that he has no clothes on. I guess we can get you clothes. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect this either. This is crazy. I have a snake for an arm. Jacob, you had a snake for a tail before. It's not that big of a difference. Naofumi slightly laughs, and they obviously get him armor and set with a weapon that he feels comfortable with, in which, obviously respecting Naofumi a lot, he wants a hatchet for himself or an axe-like weapon. So that's what he does. To grip it, he actually grips it with his left hand, and the snake wraps around the axe with his right-handed snake, and the snake actually can drizzle, well, like this toxic acid on the axe. So when he strikes down people, it does extra passive damage. And Jacob just became a crucial part of the party. I mean, he's always been, but now that he's practically at the same level as Philo and Raphtalia, and even in this form, it makes it easier to conversate and speak with him. So it's actually perfect. Naofumi then says that with the wave approaching quickly, that since they're all ready to go, let's get ready for this wave to begin. They are transferred to more or less the center of the wave, and Naofumi and his party begin to fight, more or less taking out as many things or creatures as possible. But the problem is, well, and what lies is the fact that Ren, Itsuki, and, well, obviously Motoyasu haven't finished the fight yet. And Naofumi's worried about this, so he takes Raphtalia, Philo, and Jacob there to where the giant monster is fighting, in which when they spot him, they see that they're arguing about things. They're arguing about this Dutchman character and who it should be, but quickly Raphtalia is able to expose the hidden boss, which is the massive Soul Eater, in which Naofumi is actually pretty impressed that Raphtalia was able to figure this out so quickly, and Jacob basically smiles saying that he'll handle this, and he jumps right onto the Soul Eater and stabs it into the boat, holding on and riding it more like a horse or a flying mount in a way. He then injects poison with the snake, and Philo immediately kicks it down with her brand new talons, and they're able to defeat it without Naofumi's help. Naofumi jumps down and actually skins it and gets some of the Soul Eaters, well, obviously essence and other things, and maybe he can even make a weapon out of it, but that's not really the time to figure that out currently. He more or less gets back up to the ship, and he sees another Soul Eater. Another Soul Eater then occurs, and Philo, Naofumi, and obviously Raphtalia and Jacob get ready to fight it, but that's until someone else appears. Someone else destroys the Soul Eater, and, well, Naofumi is in shock. This person, are they good, bad, Neutral? Who is this? And it's a woman in a black kimono wielding two-bladed war fans by the name of Glass. The true enemy of this wave has arrived. Glass easily is obviously able to defeat that Soul Eater, and she's impressed, saying that the party of this, hunting hero of some sorts is pretty impressive. It seems like this hunting hero has one hell of a party, but she's heard something else. That he can't fight any humans. Now that's a predicament. A very, very, very bad one. And Raphtalia, Philo, and Jacob hear this and stand in front of Naofumi, drawing their weapons and just getting ready to fight, saying that he doesn't need to fight a human, that they'll fight for him. And, Naofumi then realizes how trustworthy these people are, that they're ready to lay down their lives to help them. But Naofumi looks at the other heroes and nods, basically telling them to get into position to do something, because he personally won't be able to do anything if, his weapon is correct, and when he looks at it, it says that it's invalid in terms of Glass and trying to hurt her, that they're going to need to step up with their party and his party to defeat this person. But right when they go into position to strike, they're defeated instantly. Naofumi is shocked by this. Are they really that far behind? Are they really that far behind, Naofumi's party? This is insane. What have they been doing? But Naofumi does realize that he gets boosted XP by every means of the imagination, but maybe it's because he's used to this. He's been hunting really all his life, so training like this was like second nature. Maybe to them it wasn't. Maybe to them they got lazy. They thought that they could beat anything that really came their way, and there was nothing that was disputing that at the moment. But with Glass standing right in front of them, it was the pure result of nobody, or at least the other three, not training hard enough, not working hard enough, and taking things, half as serious. Naofumi stands his ground and even begins to talk to this invader. Who are you exactly anyways? You said that your name is Glass, but why are you even here? Glass responds and begins to say that she's here on regard of killing all of them. And Naofumi is in shock by this, the fact that she just wants to come here to kill all of them, but for what reason? There's no motive behind it. But she says that she needs to save her world, and with them alive, her world is at risk, and at risk of dying, being destroyed and being executed in entirety. And Naofumi is in shock. But what can he do? He can't fight. Raphtalia, Philo, and Jacob can, but there's a lot of things that they may lack in this battle, especially with someone that wiped one of these monsters out without a second thought. Yes, his team was able to do it with a combined effort though, so they don't know how strong she actually is. But even with that in mind, it doesn't matter. Naofumi and his party need to fight, but Naofumi can't fight. He can't do anything. He looks to the other heroes and they're down for the count, and he looks to his party and apologizes, saying that he won't be able to protect them at all and won't be able to help at all. But they nod and basically say that it's time for them to protect him. They all three dash at Glass, and it's very apparent how strong Glass is, but the amount of training Raphtalia, Philo, and Jacob have are putting them basically on par with Glass's power with 3 versus 1. Glass is surprised by this, that this isn't even the legendary hero fighting her, this is his party. She remarks that he's not gonna fight, and what is he, some coward? And Naofumi says that she's the coward, coming to a world to strike down these heroes, even a hero that can't hurt other humans. And she's in shock by this. In shock by, at what he's saying. She's heard about a said hero, other known as the hunting hero. More specifically, she's heard about the hunting spirit. This spirit actually resided in her world initially, but it seemed to have transferred worlds, unknowingly of course, and nobody knew why, but it happened. And now Naofumi was just that. The hunting hero that was originally in her world is now, well, not there. And the person in their world is now the shield hero. Now Naofumi doesn't hear all this, obviously. Glass is just remarking this in her mind, but even thinks about it for a while. And maybe that's why the spirit of the shield hero in her world didn't want to come here, didn't want to hunt down these heroes, and she didn't see it as the right thing to do. And maybe that's why her spirit was exactly, well, remarkable to the hunting spirit, but the hunting spirit left and found Naofumi before anything occurred. But even with that in mind, Glass knows that what needs to be done and begins to basically assault the rest of the heroes and also, well, obviously Naofumi's party. Raphtalia tries to defend the best she possibly can, but gets smacked away. Philo dashes in with her brand new claws, trying to, well, actually hurt Glass, but nothing is working. Jacob tries to poison her, in which he does partially, but even that poison won't be strong enough to handle what's to come. But right when they think all is lost and everything is gonna spiral down into their deaths, well, Glass begins to get pulled back into the wave. It seems like Glass is on a time limit. The time limit of the wave is hindering her, and she begins to get pulled back and sent back through the wave. Now Naofumi sighs in relief and apologizes to his team once again, but they tell him that it's fine. It's not his fault. He can't do anything about it. And maybe in the next month or so they can figure out a workaround. Maybe they can somehow figure out a way to, well, give him the ability to hurt a human or attack a human. But Naofumi begins to say that that might not even exist, but he'll do some research into his weapon the best he possibly can. After all is said and done, everybody heads back to, well, the kingdom. And the king actually questions all of them about what occurred. And they say that Naofumi's party was the only reason why they even survived. The king asks how he got so strong, and he points at himself and says that he didn't get strong. His party got strong. And it's really at the matter of fact that, but he's cut off by the king. Don't lie to me. I need to know your methods of training right now, or else. Naofumi looks at him oddly. Or else what? You're correct, I can't hurt anybody. That's very apparent, and that's the only reason why I wasn't able to, well, help in this fight, other than my party. But or else what? You're not a hero. These are heroes. The other three that are beside me are part of the heroes, so I'll be consulting with them and not you. And the king is pissed by this, and Naofumi realizes that mine and the king have very similar motives. This manipulation that runs in their blood, they want what they want, and they will make sure they'll get it no matter what. But Naofumi isn't playing for that. He doesn't care about the connection the other heroes and the king have. He tells the other heroes that they'll speak very soon, and that, well, they're gonna need to talk about everything that happened. But from now on, they need to take training very seriously. This is no, oh, I'm just doing enough to get by. This is, you have to take it seriously, training day and night. And he tells Ren and Itsuki and Motoyasu this specifically, saying that if they're not able to keep up with these people, especially because Naofumi can't. Naofumi is a higher level than them currently, but he personally cannot fight them. It's impossible with his weapon. And he tells them that they need to pick up where he lacks. And I think that's exactly what, well, the heroes are made to do. Naofumi, after this remark, then leaves the other three heroes with the idea that maybe it is time to take this way more seriously. But with all that said and done, Naofumi, well, needs to head off to shield Frieden with Raphtalia, Philo, and Jacob to get their class upgrades. This is very crucial at this point. He knows that he currently cannot help in this fight unless he can find some other way to help. He needs to get these class upgrades and maybe even have a new party member join. as he obviously remarks this, he's actually approached by Melty and various other, bodyguards that she has, and she asks to reconcile with, the king. And Naofumi says he has nothing against the king, but he can see his, evil ways, and he has no, business with him. He only has business with the other heroes, and that's what matters. He tells Melty that if they want to stay safe, and they want to stay safe from the waves, they won't obviously restrict him in terms of the heroes. That is all that matters. He can make his own money. He can make his own whatever this or that. He's been doing it all this time, so he'll be able to do it on his own. But restricting him from the other heroes is something the king cannot do. And if he does, then a serious problem will occur. And Melty says that he'd never do that. He's not that dumb. But as Melty says this, the bodyguards attempt to assassinate her. Naofumi, though, basically just steps in front, taking a slash to the back, but he doesn't die. Luckily, he's pretty strong at this point, so he's able to take a hit, but he's able to basically take that hit and protect Melty, as Raftalia, Jacob, and obviously Philo go in and immediately knock out the other knights, and there's one knight left that just runs away. And, Naofumi says he has a bad feeling about this. This attempted assassination on, Melty will obviously be pointed at Naofumi eventually, or this weird kidnapping of some sorts. And, this is exactly what happens. The knights accuse him of taking her hostage, telling, the three heroes and everybody else. The odd thing is, though, on one of the bodies of these, you could say guards, is the Church of the Three Heroes. Naofumi doesn't know exactly what's their deal, but has his suspicions. He can see what they are trying to get at, stopping him from obviously upgrading his class and other things like that. So what is the problem with the Three Hero Church, other than the fact that it disregards the shield, which was supposed to be in this world? But he'll have to think about that for another time. He heads off once again, and they begin hiking through the mountains nearby, but guards are hot on their trail, and so are the other three heroes, but they're even questioning what's happening exactly. And when they basically get caught, Melty explains the situation, saying that these, people or these knights turned on them, trying to assassinate her. And Malty, or Mine, tries to say otherwise, and says that Naofumi must be tricking them somehow, that it must be that hunting tool, it must be somehow brainwashing, but someone cuts her off. It's actually Ren and Itsuki, saying that makes no sense. He gets nothing out of this. He gets nothing out of kidnapping Melty, and that's the only reason why they came along. Motoyasu asks if they're really buying that, and if they truly believe, that to be true, and they say yes. And Motoyasu isn't actually completely in the gutter at this point, so he actually believes them. And he questions why Mine would accuse Naofumi of this. And if Naofumi's story is completely correct, that means the knights were trying to kill Melty. Why were they trying to kill Melty? And this creates a whole other scenario. Now they're questioning Mine like crazy. Did they really send knights to kill her own sister? Or did she plan this herself? And Mine is beginning to freak out. Mine is beginning to panic and begins to say that that's ridiculous. Naofumi walks up over to Ren and hands him something, saying that this is the church pendant and that it might have something to do with what's going on. He thinks that this, is a little bit more corrupt than what they believe. Naofumi then says that they have to go. They need to speak or go to Shield Frieden and obviously get the class upgrades. So they're obviously let go, and the knights don't stop them. And Melty, is obviously safe at this point. During their trip, basically going to Shield Frieden, they're approached by somebody. Approached by, someone that was sent by the Queen. And she begins to explain that the Queen wants to talk to them as soon as possible. And Naofumi says that that's going to be kind of hard with everybody, kind of on their tail. Even with the heroes on their side, it doesn't change the fact that the knights are still after them, and they say that they'll try their best to see what they can do. Eventually, they decide that they're going to try to go to Shield Frieden instead, but they see that everything's blocked off, so they're kind of forced to head in the direction of where the queen currently is. This then leads them to obviously meeting up with the nobleman Van Richnot, who basically rules over this area, and by their surprise, but not Melty's, they actually are just greeted in. He begins explaining that they can stay here as long as they want, and at least they can have some time to rest, get some meals, and other things like that. So they stay there for the night, and they begin to try and watch and basically keep guard. But during this, well, something very bad happens. After the night, was over, these guards and these knights, and also someone very close to Raphtalia in terms of, her life, appears. Another nobleman by the name of Rabier appears and takes away Melty due to the fact that Melty more or less tries to distract the guards so that they don't get in trouble. Melty leaves with him, but Naofumi and obviously his team refuse to just let her go and, whatever happens. And that's the last thing, Naofumi wants. So Naofumi decides that they're going to head over and get her back, and they're going to make sure nothing bad happens to her. So after some time, they begin to head over where they will know Melty was taken. So they infiltrate the castle to see Richnot getting tortured in front of Melty, and it seems like Rabier's amusement is at a peak, and he's basically mocking Melty, saying that this will happen to her if, she doesn't obey. And, this is the last thing he'll be saying, because Raphtalia immediately kicks him to the ground, and he just pitifully begs for mercy as Raphtalia kicks him in the gut and even breaks a couple ribs. Raphtalia looks at Naofumi, and she decides on her own, without a word spoken, that she's not going to kill him. But she does kick him in the face and knocks him out cold. Raphtalia then explains to, Naofumi that, a long time ago, her home village was obviously destroyed in the first, wave. And the villagers enslaved, or they were enslaved by Melromark troops. And, her best friend was sold to Rabier, and she'd listen as he'd beat her senseless. And Raphtalia would go through the same beatings, but she tried to, maintain a smile on her face. And, that's why she was the way she was when Naofumi found her. Naofumi then reminds her that luckily she's safe now, and that nothing like this will ever happen again. And obviously she's glad to hear this, but obviously it doesn't necessarily matter when her other friends were just brutally killed. But with that all said, Raphtalia guides all of them to an underground prison, seeing her old friend. Her old friend's remains, but then also another person that's alive. Her other old friend that was basically enslaved with her is still somehow alive, and she helps take him away. Keel is then obviously shocked to see how many people are there, and she says that everything is fine. Naofumi looks at him and nods, saying that he's safe now, no matter what. Now he will be able to live a life without all of this. And he, for some reason, can feel comfortable around Naofumi. It's as if he gives off this aura of, protection. And he feels the same about his entire party. Naofumi tries his best to comfort him the best he possibly can, but obviously Raphtalia can do that better than he can. That's until something very, very drastic occurs. Rabier is awake once again and frees a sealed away Tyrannosaurus-like monster. A dragon / Tyrannosaurus Rex begins to promptly hunt them down and heads for Naofumi at full speed. As they confront this Rex monster, it seems like Rabier is out cold from actually being able to do this. Melty concludes a plan that basically uses Philo as bait, and they're gonna bait him to a giant lake. Maybe they can somehow submerge him under the water and trap him. So that's the plan. They all head over as they continue to attack him, but nothing begins to work. That's until the massive Philolial Queen emerges from the water. Initially, Naofumi looks up thinking that it's another threat, but he can tell that this Philolial Queen is, well, here to help. And as he says this to himself, the Philolial Queen smashes down on this monster and defeats him with ease. The Philolial Queen then obviously thanks them and, well, changes to her human form, introducing herself as Fitoria. Fitoria, well, basically tells them all that they're going to be going over to the Philolial Sanctuary in the meantime so they can get some rest. And Naofumi asks about Fitoria and about Philo's, well, true nature, and Fitoria answers that Philo's growth is due to, well, the hero raising her. That it's just a matter of fact that when things like this happen, it's mostly due to the legendary heroes. Same thing with Jacob. And he's shocked by this, to hear this, saying that, well, if he got other creatures, that it would be beneficial for them as well. And she nods. But you never want to, well, cut yourself so thin where you have to raise this many, well, creatures. And Naofumi obviously agrees. But with all that said, Fitoria gets down to business. That these waves are ravaging not just Melromark, it's the entire world. And Fitoria is trying her best to protect everyone, at least not in Melromark, but after a long time, well, she's going to fall victim to these waves as well. And Fitoria can't protect these other nations alone to fulfill, well, the wish of the last hero that raised her. Naofumi begins to talk once again, explaining that none of them are ready to take on a wave by themselves, especially with these invading intruders and these other humans that he can't fight. Fitoria is shocked to hear this and asks why he can't fight them. And he says that it's due to his weapon or his tool. That his tool works in a special way that is basically restricted to just monsters, creatures, and stuff like that. And she realizes what he means. That this tool is as if a spirit that is resisting the fact to hurt a human being, but it may be unrestricted with, well, various other circumstances. And he's confused at what she means, and she begins to explain that they need to do more research into his weapon in the meantime, in terms of trying to get all the heroes to cooperate on top of him trying to figure out his weapon. And he agrees, saying that making the heroes cooperate won't be very difficult. It seems like they're already on the bridge of doing so anyways. And she's happy to hear this, and says that she wants to give a parting gift, but she wants to make sure they're all ready for it, and she wants to test Philo. Well, Naofumi isn't against this, and since Fitoria has seemingly all good nature, Naofumi will totally do this and make sure that the heroes unite. And she thanks him for, well, being obviously very good in terms of, well, trying to get the heroes together and obviously trying to maintain that bond. But during this time, what he doesn't know is that Ren and Itsuki are currently following the lead to investigate the church, discovering a hidden library. And, well, this may go really bad really fast. But back with Naofumi the next morning, Fitoria takes Melty hostage and, well, coerces Naofumi to make sure that everything goes to plan. And Naofumi acts like he's shocked, and this leads to Fitoria and Philo duking it out in their normal human forms, in which Fitoria is far above Philo by miles in terms of power, but this doesn't necessarily matter. After the entire fight is over, Vittoria is satisfied, realizing how strong, well, Philo is, and grants her to be the successor of, well, obviously the Filolio Queen, and it grants her insane base stat increases. Both Naofumi and obviously Vittoria apologize for what they had to do. It was just a test they needed to enact, and frankly it wouldn't have been the same if obviously she and him told them. With that all said and done, Vittoria then takes Naofumi and his party to the nearest hero, because obviously she believes that they're on good terms, but she wants him to inform at least one of them as soon as possible of everything that's occurring. And on top of that, he needs to make sure that everything will go according to plan. So that's what he does. Naofumi arrives at, unfortunately, Moteyasu's party, but he knows that Moteyasu would at least listen. So he begins speaking with Moteyasu, and Mine steps in trying to say that that is ridiculous and that they shouldn't be even talking to him. But Moteyasu says that they need to hear him out. Yes, he does believe Mine to a certain extent, but mostly believes Naofumi. But Naofumi then explains that, well, all of this stuff that is occurring with the waves and such like that is happening all around the world. And Moteyasu is shocked by this to hear it, and basically says that that's why they need to get stronger, correct? And Naofumi nods, and he asks where Ren and Itsuki are, and Moteyasu closes his eyes and shakes his head. They were attacked. I'm not sure who attacked them, but they may even be dead. Moteyasu is hurt by this by a lot, and Naofumi is as well. Hearing this is horrible. Hearing this is the worst possible thing that could have happened. How does this make sense? This can't be happening. He can't be. As they are basically talking about this, Philo begins to sense something, telling everybody that they need to move now. And everybody moves out of the way, going up a small hill that's nearby as a giant attack strikes down on them. And Naofumi is shocked to see this. Who the heck made such a blast like that? And as he questions this, well, the Pope then arrives. The Pope is there standing in front of two of the Cardinal heroes and says that this battle is now on. And that's, well, Naofumi and Moteyasu don't stand a chance alone, especially because Naofumi can't do anything himself. Naofumi is frustrated by hearing this, frustrated at this fact. He can't help at all. What does this even mean? Why can't he feels something in his pocket though, and it's a piece of paper. And he puts that piece of paper, well, on his weapon or his tool, and it absorbs within it, and he's confused. What the heck is happening? His level up screen then turns on and begins to explain something. That, well, Naofumi has something built into his tool that has a lot to do with, well, upgrading his tool, but also giving it special effects. And this piece of paper that he put within it gives him the opportunity to actually have no restrictions on his hunting tool, including being able to fight against humans. And he's shocked by this, but he's gonna make sure he takes full advantage. He pulls out his hatchet or his axe, and so does his whole party, ready to fight. Moteyasu questions why he's going to fight, and he explains to Moteyasu what happened, and that it seems he's going to be able to help out here. Naofumi and Moteyasu dash at the Pope and begin to try and strike him down. And well, the fight is fierce. But even with Naofumi being able to help, this is all restricted. Naofumi isn't getting the same boost that he normally gets against monsters, and that's why Naofumi was so strong against them, because of these boosts. But Naofumi is considerably weak against actually a normal human, so he's at a massive disadvantage, unfortunately. Vittoria might have given his party a boost, but frankly he's lacking in a lot of this scenario. And this, well, paper that he put on his weapon seems to be temporary. Just the two of them will not be able to beat him. Just the two of them. As Naofumi is thinking about this, Ren and Itsuki show up. The two that were presumed to be dead came in, basically there to strike them down. And Ren and Itsuki is ready to help with the fight against the Pope. They explain that they were actually rescued by the Queen and the Special Forces, and it seems like their army will be on the way to help as well. And, well, the Pope says that there's no chance that anybody is leaving here alive, making the battlefield a giant magical cathedral. With obviously the thousands of followers that are helping the Pope, this weapon that is built up from all of the legendary weapons is practically unstoppable. The Pope seems to be unstoppable, but with all of them working together, truly working together, it seems that the four heroes may have a chance at breaking through, obviously, the Pope's insane power. Naofumi, while on top of Philo, dashes at the Pope as the Pope is on a recharge time. He begins shooting these weird, obviously, darts that he knows are basically to put someone to sleep. They land within the Pope's body, and he begins to feel groggy. He has multiple different types of blow darts, and it seems like these blow darts vary in terms of, well, effects. And currently these effects are lethal. They have, well, obviously to make him groggy, make him tired, but others to make him slowly but surely die. And Naofumi is aware of this, knowing that this will weaken him severely. And obviously the other heroes see this and decide to capitalize off of it. Raphtalia slices through, slicing at the Pope with Ren and Itsuki right behind her. Itsuki shoots an arrow perfectly between his face, landing clean, not penetrating the skin, but hurting him severely. And then Motoyasu follows up with a giant spear attack that he throws directly at the chest of the Pope. Naofumi continues his barrage, throwing, well, laced toxic tipped javelins, as well as shooting blow darts, and then eventually following up with his hatchets, dashing at him, chopping basically right on top of the chest. And as he does this, fire begins to emerge and begins to degrade, obviously, the Pope. The Pope can't actually withstand any of these attacks, and eventually the Pope is defeated with the arrival of the Queen. Naofumi is completely tired out, and it seems like the, well, paper he put on his weapon that allowed him to hurt humans actually is just wearing off, but unfortunately it has its side effects. He begins to pass out, and he can feel his entire body hurting, as if the hunting tool rejected the idea of hurting a human, and weirdly enough, he begins to see a spirit as he begins to fall asleep. And Naofumi apologizes, saying that he knows that he didn't want to hurt a human. Passing out, Naofumi is awakened days later after recovering, and the Queen apologizes for all the troubles the three-hero church has caused, including mine and the King. She knows that he's not the shield hero, but frankly, it was just as bad what he went through. It seems like mine and the King really do hate the shield hero, and well, they kind of were taking it out on him, even though he wasn't the said hero they hated. And Naofumi says it's fine, and that he doesn't care anymore as long as he can figure all this out. Everything he heard from Vittoria, and well, the Queen is shocked by this. Vittoria, like the Filolio Queen, and she says that she'd love to meet her, and Naofumi says that if maybe one day they could meet, and he'll see what he can do. And obviously, after some time of obviously recovering and stuff like that, the Queen removes the royal privileges from the former king now and mine, sentencing them to, well, a punishment. Naofumi says that all he cares about is that they learn their lesson. It doesn't need to be death, and it doesn't need to be anything too outlandish. And frankly, the Queen thanks him for this. Obviously, she cares about her family, and Naofumi can see that all through and through, and basically tells the queen that, well, it's okay, that everybody is going to make mistakes, but it's really if you continuously make those mistakes is what matters. The queen thanks him again, and then says that she'll declare the 3 heroes church abolished, and that it will worship the 4 heroes. But that hero wouldn't be, well, obviously the shield hero, it will be the hunting hero, the one that doesn't even hurt humans. And Naofumi smiles and thanks her. With all that settled and, well, handled, Naofumi and his party decide that it's now time to head to the Dragon Hourglass to finally receive their class upgrades. But oddly enough, the ritual seems to have failed. But that's actually not it. It's not that necessarily the, well, ritual failed, it's that Fitoria's blessing is interfering with it somehow, revealing that basically this Filolial, well, queen actually helped more than actually hurt the, well, Dragon Hourglass upgrade. It seemed that they got an extreme amount of boost, way more than they would have initially if Vittoria didn't give her, well, her blessing to them. And he's shocked by this and apologized to Raftalia, Philo, and Jacob that they can't make their own decisions in terms of their class upgrades, but they say it's completely fine, that it's actually more beneficial for them if they're stronger other than just having that choice of class upgrades. With all that said and done, they all then eventually head to a private meeting during a banquet, in which the hunting hero, Naofumi, the spear hero, Motoyasu, the sword hero, Ren, and the bow hero, Itsuki, are then also put in a meeting with the queen. They have a private meeting about everything that is occurring, everything that is going to basically happen, and she informs the heroes of an upcoming event, more specifically called Calmira, an archipelago event, where everyone gains bonus experience points, giving them the opportunity to level up greatly before the next wave. And Naofumi is happy to hear this. This is perfect for him. He'll be able to defeat high level, obviously, creatures and get insane amounts of XP for it. And he wants to actually upgrade his, well, hatchet in the meantime. And this would be a great time to do so. But with all that said, they actually decide to talk about the various ways they've figured out to level up. And Naofumi explains what he's done, but everything's different for him. I mean, obviously his hunting weapons are far different than a spear, sword, or even a bow, so he's not able to help necessarily, but luckily Motoyasu, Ren, and Itsuki can help each other, and they're way more open to helping this time, not really getting into a fight over whose leveling method is the best. So luckily they actually take advice from one another. With all that said and done though, Naofumi's party then obviously heads off to, well, a ship, and they all begin leaving to Calmira. And they actually meet a pair of travelers by the name of Lark and Therese. And he introduces himself as the hunting hero, and Lark and Therese are shocked to hear this and say that it's a pleasure to meet him, the one that, well, saves everybody even without being able to hurt a human. It's actually kind of odd. It's as if he's like a purist of some sort. And Naofumi scratches the back of his head and says he wouldn't call himself that. But I mean, the whole idea of the obviously hunting tool is that you never hurt a human. And they agree and say that this is a definite great philosophy. But Naofumi has his suspicions. These people seem odd. How would they even know about that in the first place? I mean, maybe the kingdom spread word about it, or maybe anybody would have, but who really even knows this? This is a very specific idea that you would have had to have known in terms of the wave, but Naofumi doesn't really touch on it anymore. So when they arrive, they begin to take his party to the archipelago, obviously, to grind XP, fashioning his new weapon. He hasn't used his, well, dragon hatchet much at all, so he begins using it like crazy, destroying, well, monster after monster, creature after creature, Naofumi is getting insane amounts of XP, including Philo and Raphtalia and Jacob. He gets boosted XP for killing monsters and other things like that, and he obviously can hurt higher level monsters, so they immediately go to the highest level XP grinding, at least to the place, and Lark and Therese aren't actually able to keep up with this high level grinding. They even are impressed about how high level Naofumi is in terms of, well, destroying these creatures, and he just remarks that he has boosted stats when he fights monsters and such, and they're surprised to hear this. But Lark and Therese unfortunately were not able to keep up and fight these monsters, and to them, they believe that this may end up being a problem. Naofumi gains insane amounts of experience from this, including Raphtalia and Philo and Jacob, far beyond, well, anything they could even consider initially. Their stats are insane, and they also gain some impressive new weapons, like, well, obviously with their weapons degrading, Naofumi is able to either repair their old ones and create new ones from these monsters that are insanely powerful. So Raphtalia gets a boost in her sword, and Philo gets a boost in her weapon as well. And then Jacob obviously has a hatchet very similar to Naofumi's, in which he replaces with another hatchet that is obviously just a boosted version of it. But with that all said, and a couple days pass, Naofumi and his party decide to take a break, relax on the beach, and when you're obviously fighting really high level monsters all the time, it obviously gets draining, but they obviously have seen insane results. But while relaxing on the beach, Philo discovers something odd, discovers an undersea temple. It seems that this undersea temple could be something interesting, so Naofumi and his team go and check it out, finding that there's a dragon hourglass underneath it, residing and linking to it, and he learns that the next wave is due in Kalmyra in 48 hours. Learning of this wave though, Naofumi immediately warns the queen and obviously teleports over there first and basically tells her to amass a giant naval fleet and that they'll need to take down this monster, and that, well, he has an idea in the meantime and that he'll need some time to work on it, so he'll be going out on his own, but tells the queen that they'll all be ready, so to not worry. But he also remarks that there's going to be 2 people there, and they should be worried about, that they are very suspicious according to Naofumi, and the queen also gives Naofumi something that he requested a while ago, something that he used against the Pope. It's actually a piece of paper that will allow him to fight, well, obviously humans, and he looks and nods at her, thanking her and hoping that the training he's done is gonna make him strong enough to actually help. She says that even if it's not strong enough and he's not strong enough, his party will be. The training does help, well, all of them. Naofumi nods and heads out with 48 hours ticking. He takes Philo away actually and asks if she can, well, help him with something. She says of course, and she asks what, and he basically explains that he wants to go in the middle of the ocean, and she seems to be a really good swimmer. And she nods and says and asks why, but he begins to explain that she'll see very soon. So they go out into the giant ocean and he grabs his fishing rod. She questions if she only is here so that he can fish, and he says not quite. After about an hour or 2 of fishing though, he's able to gain an extensive amount of XP for his fishing rod. Just as he thought, the obviously boosted XP matters for his weaponry as well, just like he's seen while upgrading his hatchet to a pretty good level, and he sees that his fishing rod gains insane amounts of XP, and he may even be able to execute this plan that he's thinking. He explains to Philo that they're going to be here for a little bit, and if that's okay with her, and she says that is completely fine, and that having time with Naofumi is honestly great. And Naofumi just laughs about this and continues to throw out his rod, eventually leading to a giant pullback, a giant creature underneath the water very similar to a Mosasaurus, this creature comes flying out of the water, and Philo asks if she should attack it, but Naofumi smiles and shakes his head no, that they're gonna be able to actually tame this thing. And she begins to ask, how is that even possible? And he explains that this creature is, well, of what he learned in the books, is more or less a calm creature. And if you show calmness to him, or the creature, it should obey. And they slowly but surely swim over to the creature, and Naofumi puts his hand out. The creature opens his mouth as if he's going to eat them, but then closes it before he even gets close. And Naofumi puts his hand on the creature's head and begins to feed it fish. More fish and more fish, eventually leading to the creature being extremely friendly to Naofumi. He pets the creature and explains that, well, he'll be part of this, well, battle that's going to occur, and it's going to happen in this very ocean. The creature more or less does a weird call, seemingly telling Naofumi that he'll be ready when it comes. And Naofumi throws him one last fish and says that he'll see him in about 36 hours. The creature then dives under the water, and Philo is amazed by this. It's like a hunter is like taming other people or other creatures too. And Naofumi laughs and says that unfortunately he's no, well, taming hero or monster controller, so it's a little harder. And obviously after all these hours, Philo can see this. But with that all said, they head back to meet with their team. With only 36 hours left to go, they all just train, or at least try to level up for the next little bit until the wave of Calmira is about to begin. With the naval fleet ready to go, and Lark and Therese who sail in as well, they are ready to fight these, well, boss monsters and also smaller creatures that will arrive in the waters. Initially, they have an easy time with these smaller creatures until the boss monster arrives. But unluckily, well, they're limited in terms of everything they can do, but Naofumi is able to basically hurt this monster and defeat it using his upgraded hatchet with relative ease, in which obviously Itsuki and Ren and also Motoyasu couldn't necessarily hurt this monster very easily, but it seems like they were training for another scenario. That's why they weren't able to hurt this monster very much. They've been, well, training in a way to hurt, well, Glass. Glass is the main threat, and even Naofumi knows this, and Philo begins to ask where that, well, monster he tamed or helped out is, and Naofumi says that he's coming for a different purpose. And Philo is shocked to hear this, as, well, Lark and Therese appear right in front of them. On the dead body of this giant monster, Lark and Therese begin to say that it's time for the hunting hero to die, and that all of them will be dead here very soon. But Naofumi is ready for this, slapping the, well, paper that allows him to hurt humans upon his weapon. He knows that this is going to basically affect him and the hunting spirit afterwards, but hopefully this is the last time he'll need it. They charge at Lark, and the fight is insane. Naofumi is out-leveling him by maybe even 15 levels by a good margin. Naofumi's training was very, very fruitful, and so it was as well for his teammates. They begin to strike down both Therese and Lark, but it seems like they're able to keep up. Naofumi may have fruitful training, but they have technique. The Therese and Lark have insane clever tactics that allow Lark, well, when he's wounded, to immediately heal back up. And this isn't the hardest part. The hardest part is when Glass then arrives. Glass begins to strike all of them down, and Naofumi realizes that it's now time to take his strategy to the next level. He tells them all to fight Lark and Therese and that he'll take on Glass. And Rautalia and Jacob say this is a horrible idea, but Philo backs him up, saying to trust him, that everything will be fine. And they look at Philo confused, but she seems so determined, as if they have a plan. Naofumi confronts Glass in single combat, and frankly, Glass mocks him, saying that he cannot even stand up to her, that he can't even fight properly, he can't hurt a human. But Naofumi says that that's just not the case anymore. He's figured that out. His axe lights ablaze, and well, he's ready to fight Glass. Charging in, and they begin to clash. His axe is doing substantial amounts of damage, but Glass is able to keep him at bay. He has to close the distance, but Naofumi isn't insanely fast. If he was fighting a monster, it'd be different. It'd be way different. But he tries to get her on the back foot, eventually getting her to, well, the back of the ship they are standing on. He clashes one more time, and as he backs up, he launches his fishing rod into the sea. And she's confused. Are you seriously fishing while we're fighting? That makes absolutely no sense. Glass is shocked and looks into the sky as she's talking and sees a giant Mosasaurus-like creature crashing down on her. She tries to fight it off, but the Mosasaurus creature bashes her into the water. She opens her eyes while underneath and sees multiple creatures following the Mosasaurus, grabbing onto her, pulling her deeper, deeper, and deeper. Lark sees this and begins to panic, telling Therese that she needs to hold her own, that he needs to go save Glass. But Naofumi knows that Glass will not be dead by any means of the imagination, but he tells all the naval fleets to be ready. Be ready to strike at Glass if she gets back above the water. Well, Lark immediately dives into the water, fending off these other monsters with his scythe. But even with the help of, well, Lark, it is still a struggle to get her out. Eventually, when they get her out, she's completely drained of stamina, tired, and well, the Mosasaurus is still alive, ready to help Naofumi out the best he possibly can. Immediately, when Lark is about to strike down Naofumi, the Mosasaurus-like creature breaks the boat in complete half, sectioning them off, and Naofumi grabs onto the Mosasaurus as it takes him away to another ship. Naofumi jumps off the ship and realizes that, well, his time limit is coming to an end and he won't be able to fight anymore. He throws some fish to the Mosasaurus and looks toward Lark and, well, Glass. And Lark wants to strike once again, and so does Glass, but Therese dashes over and tells them that their time is running out and running low, and that they need to go now. And Lark and Glass are frustrated by this, that Naofumi pulled a trick like this to stall their time, and not only that, best them in a strategy. How did he know? He knew about this? And, well, Glass tells them that if they remarked about, well, him not being able to hurt a human, well, nobody else even knew about that. So they just exposed, well, their whole plan. Naofumi smirks and can hear them talking about this, and Glass says that she'll wipe that smirk off his face the next time they meet, and Naofumi takes a knee on the ground out of exhaustion because of, well, obviously the note or the paper just ran out. Naofumi then begins to speak. Oh, trust me, I'll be ready, and everybody else will be as well. So, take your best shot, Glass. I promise. You're not hunting us. We're hunting you. Glass, Lark, and Therese then are pulled back into the wave, and they escape from the, well, obviously the fight entirely, and Naofumi is leaning on his axe as the queen comes over to the ship and heals him up. He slightly gets up and leans on Rautalia and obviously Jacob and begins to say that this is far from over, but for now, luckily everything turned out alright. With the wave now finished, Naofumi says his goodbyes to his, well, Mosasaurus friend as he dives underneath the water more and more, and Philo is surprised how effective that was, and so was Raphtalia and Jacob, that this Mosasaurus was insanely strong, and Naofumi agrees, but everything is circumstantial, so he won't be that much of help if they're fighting on land once again. But with all that said and done, obviously Naofumi heads back to the kingdom, and the queen is waiting and gives him a reward of lordship over Raphtalia's, well, old village, an old home, and they begin the rebuilding process to rebuild the entire village. Raphtalia thanks him for everything and thanks him for being this person that he is today, the person that protects everybody he possibly can. Naofumi smiles and nods and tells her that he'll be here, and whenever any wave comes and goes, that he'll make sure to stop it, and stop it the best he possibly can, even with the restrictions of the hunting spirit. The spirit, as obviously Naofumi talks about it, the spirit appears in front of Naofumi and puts out his hand. Naofumi asks if Raphtalia can see that, but Raphtalia can't, it's only Naofumi, and Naofumi reaches out, and a shake is commenced. They shake each other's hands, and the spirit dissolves into nothing, but is absorbed into Naofumi. It seems that the spirit has completely trusted Naofumi to make the right decisions. Does that mean Naofumi has no more restrictions? Can he protect the ones he, well, wants to protect without having to make adjustments to, well, his weapon? Well, he doesn't know. But what matters now is rebuilding this new village that was the former destroyed village of Raphtalia's, making it a safe haven for, well, people like her, people that are demi-humans, and maybe even people all around the world. But with that said, what would happen with the hunting hero Naofumi? We don't know, because frankly, this story is where it ends, and this story is where it's coming to a close. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, sub, and comment down below any suggestions for future Shield Hero What Ifs. And I'll say it over and over again, I'm so happy to hear that you guys are enjoying this, and make sure to blow this one up as well. And obviously when season 2 comes out, I'm not sure if I'll come back to these What Ifs, but if there's enough want for it, I might just come back and finish it up and go to season 2. But as y'all know, I don't go into the manga for various reasons, and I haven't read the light novel. So with that all said, we'll be sticking to season 1 for now, and then I may even go into season 2 if it starts, occurring and stuff like that. So if we're like 2-3 episodes into season 2, I might cover those 3 episodes of season 2. I haven't exactly determined if I want to do that yet, but that is up for discussion, obviously. But like I said, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope all of y'all have an amazing day. Later.